thank you for joining our last event for today, the workshop of CloudOps. We have Will Stevens and we have Patrick Dupe, who are our speakers and who will make this workshop for us. I still see a few people joining, and most probably we'll have more people joining in the next minutes. So let's start with a short intro about you, Will, and about Pat.
Absolutely. All right. So just to kind of kick this off, my name is Will Stevens. I am CloudOps CTO. I've been working with CloudOps for coming up on 15 years so far. I've also been pretty active in the CloudStack community over the years. I was the VP of the project in 2016. I was the release manager at the same time. I'm still on the PMC, but I'm not nearly as active as I once was. So with that, I'll hand it off to let Pat introduce himself as well.
Hey, yeah, my name is Pat. I am a software development manager at CloudOps. So I've been working with CloudStack and at CloudOps for around 8 years now, and have been a longtime CloudStack user and created lots of integrations with CloudStack across the years, and glad to be here. So welcome, everyone.
All right, so I am going to ask that we do have an interactive session here. This is not going to be a slideware session. I have maybe 3 slides just to kind of set context. And then after that, we're going to be getting hands dirty into demo. And so if you have questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask. Otherwise, drop them in the chat if you feel like it's going to be too disruptive to ask. And we'll try to make this an interactive session. So CloudMC, here we've kind of called it an API-driven orchestration platform with existing CloudStack support. And I'll get into kind of what that means. But just to kind of, where am I? Here we are. Just to kind of give you a bit of an idea in terms of orientation, CloudStack is a layer that sits on top of the infrastructure orchestration that essentially allows you to productize your service and essentially charge for it. And so it allows for a monetization platform that
sorry, Will, I will just ask everybody, if you are not speaking, please be sure you mute yourself.
There we go. Thank you. Yeah, unmute if you wanna ask something, but stay muted otherwise, just so that we reduce the background noise. Thank you. All right, so yeah, CloudMC is really a product that allows you to productize underlying services. So in this case, we'll be talking about Kubernetes and CloudStack primarily, but just to illustrate, we also can orchestrate other public clouds, for example, bare metal and a number of services. So to kind of give you a bit more of an idea of what CloudMC is capable of, here are some of the existing plugins that we have today. You see CloudStack here, but we also have StackPath and Swift, which is object storage from OpenStack project, all the public clouds, OpenStack, Kubernetes, and so on, some networking ones as well. We also have integrations with authentication providers. This is through OpenID Connect currently, and there's some additional stuff we can talk about here in terms of authentication. But in general, what CloudMC is it is it's a web application platform, as well as a set of APIs that allow you to orchestrate underlying services while adding additional layers of business value on top. So things like multi-layer, multi-tenancy, trials, different branding for different organizations. So you have a reseller and you want them to be able to have their own branding, different pieces around pricing and metrics and reporting and all that type of layer. So historically, CloudStack has been very good at at handling the underlying orchestration layer, but it has some quirks if you're going to try to put it as a UI in front of a customer who doesn't understand the quirks of CloudStack's UI and such, or the interdependency of the different aspects of CloudStack. So with this, I'm going to move to kind of more of a demo. And so very quickly, I'm just going to try to orient you and kind of do tips of the waves to start with, and then we'll get deeper and deeper as we go. And so just off the top, right now, I have one service, which is a CloudStack service. And I'll just kind of show you really quickly under administration, I'll go to organizations, and you can see that I have the system organization, which is like the top level organization. And then I have a number of organizations underneath. So this one is just an Acme one that I've set up as a reseller, and they have a customer underneath. And then all three of these are trials. So just to kind of show, so this is my dev environment on my local machine. So just to kind of give you an idea, there is trial management built in as well. And so you can enable it so people can sign up for your service and start a trial. And they'll basically be registered as a trial organization here. I'll get into that in a little bit more, but just to kind of give you an idea, it is a multi-tenant environment, and there's multiple levels of tenancy that you can have, and there's different roles and so on. So let's go back and just kind of see what it looks like from a CloudStack perspective. So this is an environment. I'll create another environment just to kind of show you what it means to be an environment. So here's an environment, and you can either allow external members or not. In this case, an environment essentially is a mapping of resources to users. And what that means is that if you have a group of users who need to be able to access a certain set of environments or a certain set of resources, so VMs, networks, and so on in CloudStack, they might have different roles. So for example, I'll just kind of drop this one in here just so you can see, but we can say that all the users are viewers of this environment, or you can give them different roles, for example. This one here is interesting if you're offering something like a shared network or the like, where you want to be able to let people interact with kind of everything except for the networking. You want the networking to be configured by somebody in the data center. You don't want to necessarily expose all of the networking functionality in the environment. You want people to really be limited on their networking. There's a number of roles here, and we can actually create additional roles that fit your needs as well. And I'll get to that. But essentially, for now, I don't need any of that. All I want is just my user, and I'll hit apply. And then essentially, because a lot of people don't necessarily know what they need, so I've enabled so that I can choose either a VPC or isolated networking. So in this case, I'll pick a VPC and initialize. So what this does is it basically sets up all of the base environmental details that you need in order to be able to view. Actually, I went into the other environment, not the one that I just provisioned here. And you can see I have a VM here running already. But let me just walk you through kind of some of the screens so you can appreciate how CloudMC is orchestrating CloudStack. So these are all of the different resource usage so far in this environment. Here you can see I've done a number of things. Basically, everything that is done in the system is logged through the activity log. And I'll show you a little bit more about that, but this allows you to kind of see what everybody in the system has done. And this one is specific to this environment. So here's an instance. If you click into the instance, you can see that it has some of the details around like the image it used and so on. You have the volumes that are attached to it. Right now, it's only the root volume. You have the port forwarding rules associated with it, load balancing, and so on. I don't actually have anything on this right now because it's my just running locally. But this essentially allows you to manage all those different aspects for this instance. If I run over to networking, we have kind of the similar idea. So I don't have any isolated networks in this case. I only have a VPC here, but you can see this is the VPC data. I can go and I can click into the actual network and I can see the details of the network, and I can see what instances are running on this network. If I go back to networks, you can also see that I have the ability to manage the public IPs, network ACLs, the remote access VPN, site-to-site VPN, and private gateways, all the standard things that you would expect to see in a CloudStack environment. So all of those are available and can be orchestrated through through CloudMC. Very quickly, I'll just kind of skim through this. There's nothing too fancy here. These are just different views of the different aspects that are available, ISOs, templates, and so on. You have your SSH keys. And then another one, which is kind of interesting, is this other one. So if you're using CloudMonkey or any of the other automation platforms like the Terraform provider and so on, you want to be able to kind of see like what are the different compute offerings, for example, and what are their IDs. So you can go in here and you can just copy the IDs directly for the different compute offerings or templates and so on. Here, let me just get to some of the questions here. What level in CloudStack is a CMV map to? Okay, so I'll come back to that one, Giles. The answer is actually that we can map it to either an account or a project. They behave slightly different, but I can explain that when I get into the how it's configured. Do we support security group zones? Do you know the answer to that one, Pat? I'm not sure. That is if you're using
an isolated network, but yeah. I know we support ingress rules. I'd have to check about the security rules.
Let me just check. I might just have it right here. So this one is an isolated guest network. And so, yes, we.
Yeah, I'm not sure we support security groups right now.
Maybe not. We'll see. Yeah, we'd have to check on that one. And basically not. Right. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So right now, I think we only have isolated networks and VPCs. The shared networking.
We also support shared networks.
Oh, we do. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. It's been a while since I've touched some of this stuff, so let me. I will stand corrected. But so for the record, Pat is the one who's going to keep me honest on all of this, and if we have detailed questions, he's going to be the one who's going to be able to jump in and kind of steer us in the right direction. Okay, so that kind of gives you a bit of an idea of what the different fundamental pieces. Now let's add an instance. In this case, I'm only going to add a virtual instance. We do have the ability to orchestrate bare metal as well, but I'm not going to get into that in this case. So we'll do a demo instance. So here you can see the networks that are available are here. You can add additional things like customize the IP, the public IPs, and so on. In this case, let's say that I want to add port 22, for example. And then I'll go here and I will pick that template. You can change your memory and CPU through a slider. We actually have additional functionality that allows you to have like a more of a granular system. So so that you can manage your resources within like your capacity management, you don't want somebody who have something like a 1 CPU and like a 64 gigs of RAM. And so we allow you to actually, I don't have it set up here and I probably should have set it up for you to demonstrate. It's possible to basically set it up so that there is a sliding scale. So if you do 4 gigs of RAM, it would extend out, or 4 CPU, it would extend out and show you additional options based on what you choose. In this case, I'll just do a 1 by 1. I'll associate an SSH key. Here, let me grab a, let me just grab a little user data here so I can put this in there as well. So we'll put in some user data to just basically spin up Docker. So Docker's available on here as well. And we'll hit submit. Oh, one thing you'll notice here on the right, which I completely just skipped over, which I'll just show you again while this adds, just to kind of get you an idea of what's going on here. You can see here that there's a pricing calculator over here. So this is, here it is, it came up, and you can view the password if you want. You can just copy it, but this is the instance has spun up, and so you can, we could look at that in a minute. But what you'll notice here is that we have pricing set up for vCPU and memory in this case. And so as you change the amount of resources, it changes the cost of the instance. And so this is what your expected monthly cost would be for this instance based on the resources that you've assigned here. So that's just to note. We can get into that more if you're interested. For now, I'll just cancel. But one of the things that's really interesting is if you know CloudStack, you kind of know that since we did a whole bunch of different things there, that was a relatively complex operation. And so what you can do is you can see I was expecting there to be the SSH key and stuff here, but maybe not.
It depends on if you're creating it at runtime or associating a public IP, or creating port forwarding rules or load balancer rules, or attaching.
You might not show them all. Yeah,
exactly. But there's some things that the CloudStack API supports on the initial deploy VM call, and that's like if you have an existing SSH key, that's on the initial call. But we do support kind of chaining multiple operations. Multiple actions on the CloudStack side, and that's all through a single form and a single API on the CloudMC side.
Yeah, and one thing that's worth noting, so we've kind of hidden some of the different calls that have been made to spin up this this instance, but what you'll notice over here is on the right you have a basically a hash. And so all of the different things of spinning up the instance, if we associated different drives to it, if we assigned a public IP and opened SSH and so on, all of those different actions will be tied with this key, this correlation key. And what that means is that when you actually push all of the logs to centralized logging, all of those all of that transaction essentially will all have this same key. So if there is an error at some point, you actually can use this as a way to very easily track down where the issue was and why that happened. So here I'll just jump right back in here. I'll go back in here and then demo instance. And here now we have this. You see the SSH key was provisioned. We have we did not set up a port forwarding rule, but this is essentially the different aspects of the VM that was set up. Now let's just see. I think that probably is good enough for now. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show kind of what this looks like from a service connection perspective. So these are all sorts of different administrative things we can do. These are different organizations, the users, what roles are there. So for example, I had mentioned before that we have a number of different roles. You can create your own custom roles, and they have a lot of different permissions that you can set, for example. We have trials, for example. These are the 4 trials that are running currently. And I can jump in and show some of that in a minute. But here, just to kind of give you an idea, we have two different sets of quotas. We have unlimited, which is basically unlimited on everything. And then for the trial quota, we very much limited it. And here I can just show you very quickly. If I go back to here and I go down to this trial and I jump into the services here and I look at this environment, then you can see that here we're tracking how many resources this person has used, and they can see for themselves that they have used half of the vCPUs that are available in their trial. They've used like 1 out of the 4 public IPs, which would be the static NAT IP for their network, and so on. And so you can kind of get a sense of around what how much of the different resources that you've used. So I'll run back to the system, and then I will jump into administration. And so these are a number of different things. Just to kind of show you as well some branding. So I don't have branding set up here, but if I look over here at the Acme one, I've got a different logo. I've got a different thing here. There's a whole lot of different things you can change here. It's pretty much unlimited in terms of how you can customize the look and feel to your organization's colors and logos and that kind of stuff. And then just to kind of show one more layer, if I go down, you'll see that this organization has its own branding as well. So and I just very quickly kind of changed 2 or 3 colors just to kind of illustrate, but there's a long list of things that you can do here, including adding your own custom CSS and so on. So I'll just run back to the system organization just to kind of continue on to show the different aspects. So now we're just going to jump down to the service connection. So this is the CloudStack service connection. And essentially, if I edit it just to kind of show, I have trials enabled here on this environment. I don't have environment limits set up right now. I have usage tracking set up. I have a location, that's so I can see it on a map. And then I have the target environment that I'm targeting, and then I have the API and secret key to be able to connect to that environment. Now, if I go back and I look at some of the other information, so these are the different organizations that are currently using that connection and what their quotas are. Under pricing, this is the version 1 of our pricing. I don't have the version 2, which has much more feature rich in terms of what you're able to do from a pricing perspective. But just very quickly, I'll just show you what we have here, where you can basically have different pricing for different offerings and so on. You have your different network fundamentals, and then you have storage and such. In this case, I actually have it rolled up so that all of the templates, snapshots, and all the secondary storage usage, I can price at its own price. And so as I get into policies here, I'll kind of show you that. So this is some of the aspects around which CloudStack version you're using and which versions of the VRs and such. Under trials, this basically is how do you want them to be set up. So if I edit this, for example, I can change this to be an isolated network, or I can have it as a single network VPC, 2 or 3 different networks. And it will essentially, if you remember when I spun up the environment the first time, how it automatically provisioned a network. This is essentially where that type of, this is specifically for the trials. But this is kind of where that comes from. This is actually where it comes from, is the what are the different default networking offerings that you want to offer, and what are their names and so on when you initialize an environment. These are the different zones. You can have them sorted.
If you go back to environments, Will, and this loops back to Giles'.
Oh yes, Giles' question.
You can actually configure, do you want environments to actually be mapped to accounts or projects, or allow a user to choose if it wants to, if it should be a project or an account as well. We can actually hide or show these capabilities granularly per organization as well. So if you have a, let's say all of your customers are using projects, but you have a customer that needs an integration with some tooling that only supports CloudStack accounts, then you can enable that only for that organization. So we do have the granularity to support multiple use cases that we've seen out in the wild.
Yeah, exactly. So here we have the project-based versus account-based. By default, it's project-based. But one of the things, just to kind of riff off of what Pat was saying, is that you can change by tagging an organization what they see. So there's a number of things. I'll try to highlight some of them as we go through. But essentially, based on the tags that you associate with an organization, you can basically have them behave uniquely in the system. So I'll show some for some of the compute offerings and that kind of stuff, but here I'll show it for the zones as well. So you could have a new zone, and you could say this is an area that we're doing some testing. We're going to roll out some new features, but it's very much just a validation environment, and so you can turn it on by requiring specific tags in order to access that zone. And then when you go to the organization, when you associate those tags, then they'll see that zone. Otherwise, they wouldn't, for example. And so networking, you can have you can set a number of features here, and you can see the different offerings that you have. Volume, same type of thing. I don't necessarily need to go through all these different screens, but here you can see you can enable for them to be able to resize the root volume, for example. And here, what I was saying, so you can set the step size for how big volumes need to be in terms of like, so if it's like 30, 40, 50 kind of thing, or if you set this to 5 gigs, it would be like 25, 30, 35, 40, that kind of thing in terms of the step size. You can also set the maximum size of the volume that you're going to allow. I'm not going to go through all this, but you generally get to see the sense that there is a very mature integration with CloudStack. You can control a lot of different aspects and so on. So this right here was how I basically grouped together all of the templates, ISOs, VM snapshots, and so on into a single pricing tier. So just to kind of illustrate. So back to the service connections. What I'm going to do is, at this point, you guys probably want to see Kubernetes at this point, because that's what
do you mind if I just step in just for a second?
Absolutely.
And so a service connection represents, basically the credentials to connect to a specific CloudStack installation. And so all of the connection policies that we showed only apply to that specific connection. So, let's say you have one CloudStack that's in your lab environment, and it supports, multiple different offerings or new bleeding edge things that you don't necessarily want to offer to all of your customers. Well, you can actually control that granularly and have different policies and configuration per CloudStack connection. And so, you can connect the platform to any number of CloudStack installations, and they can all have their own custom configuration based on that. And you can always assign those connections very granularly to each customer that you want to manage as well. So everything that we put, everything that we showed under here in terms of pricing, in terms of like all of these different aspects and all the policies and everything, that is per service connection. So you can have as much control as you want around what features are available to which customers in which CloudStack environment and so on. So I'm going to add another connection. In this case, I'm just going to very quickly show kind of what we support today. We support the public clouds. We support cloud.ca, CloudStack, Google, Kubernetes,
OpenStack, a number of other ones like StackPath and SwiftStack. But I'm going to show you the Rancher integration. This Rancher integration is something that Pat and I basically built in the last 2 weeks. We kind of did it for this demo in a lot of ways, and we just kind of wanted to illustrate what the power of CloudMC is. And so I'm going to do a Rancher CCC. So this is going to be a new service connection. This is an environment that I can set up, and I'm referencing a CloudStack environment. And so I'm going to submit this, and you'll see that we have set up a new Rancher cluster. So now if I go back here and I go to services and I reload, it will show up there, assuming that I have it set up to automatically set up. There it is. So there is the Rancher cluster. And so here we have to add an environment. CCC demo. And I'm just going to skip this. I don't need to change anything on there right now. And so now we have a demo. So now we have an environment. I already have clusters running in this Rancher cluster. Here is the Rancher cluster right here. And this is just a standard Rancher cluster, just making sure that my session wasn't logged out just in case. Okay, good. So these are the clusters that you can see that are here. And essentially what we're going to be doing is we're going to be orchestrating to add another cluster here. And what we're going to be doing is we are going to, so here is a, that, and we'll pick the right organization. We're going to put it in this one.
Remove the space, Will.
Okay. And we'll go to there. Let's see. I think, yeah, this should be good. So submit. So here we go. It is provisioning a CloudStack or a Kubernetes cluster by orchestrating the Rancher and CloudStack. And so essentially what's happening here, I'll just jump back to the slides real quick, is this is what's going on. So we created a new service connection, and we gave it the Rancher server information. We also gave it the environment in CloudStack, or the CloudStack connection that we wanted to use. Now we have this Rancher cluster or Rancher plugin. So what it's going to do is it's going to go and create a new cluster in Rancher. And it's going to be a custom cluster that basically just provides the registration code. So the registration code is going to get brought back, and then essentially the Rancher plugin is going to pass to the CloudStack plugin, hey, we want to create a cluster. It's going to have these details. And when the instances come up, they're going to register and automatically install Kubernetes according to this registration code. And then once that comes up, CloudStack, the VM will reach out to the Rancher server and register itself. And then all of that will then be available through the Kubernetes SDK. So this is basically the ability to orchestrate Kubernetes through CloudMC. So I will jump back in now that you have an idea of what's going on. So one of the key things here that we wanted to kind of illustrate is the fact that CloudMC allows not only for complex operations within the context of, say, CloudStack, where it can, when it spins a VM, it can add different drives, or it can add public IPs and port forwarding rules and all that kind of stuff. It actually can orchestrate across multiple different systems at the same time based on the command. So here you'll see that it is still currently in provisioning. Let me just jump back over here to jump over to this environment, and you'll see that my cluster is this environment, and it is coming up as we speak. And so if I look at this, you'll see that we provisioned a lot of different things in the user data as we did this. The only reason we had to set up an additional disk in this case is because the root drive is only 8 gigs and we can't run a Rancher cluster on 8 gigs. But essentially, it installs Docker and then registers the Kubernetes cluster with the Rancher server. Now, one of the things that's really interesting about this is that this environment is, or this VM is not available in the world at all. It has a private IP. It has no public IPs. There's no other, there's no public facing networking that is associated with this VM. However, this Rancher server is public facing. And so this is the only piece that needs to be public facing in order for this orchestration to work. And you can still have Rancher orchestrating system like VMs that are running in private networks due to the fact that as the CloudStack VM reaches out to Rancher, it essentially creates a tunnel through which the Rancher server is then able to then communicate back with the CloudStack instance, even though that CloudStack instance is not on the public internet. So if we jump back here, let's just see how we're doing here. And we're getting close. We're on health checks and so on. So that is cruising along. One thing I'll just do really quickly. Yeah, go ahead.
One thing to note too is like the installation is taking long in this setup for a few reasons. One is we're on lab infrastructure, so it's not necessarily optimized. And two, having access to templates that have Docker pre-installed and an environment where we can scale up either root drives or assign existing drives would accelerate the installation process. But just to note that, you know, we had to do additional things in the user data that if we had access to templates with Docker pre-installed, that wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good point, because in this case, we were basically working with existing stuff in a lab, and we had to just make it work. And so here we are. That the cluster is up, and if I go to the cluster, click on it, you will see that now we are looking at the cluster through the KSDK view, which is the Kubernetes SDK. So these are all the namespaces that have been put on this cluster as it has been spun up. These are all the kind of the standard things from a Rancher deployed Kubernetes cluster. These are the workloads. So these are the pods. And then we have deployments and stateful sets and so on. We have the networking that is set up here, the different ingresses, which I don't actually think we have any right now, different config maps and secrets, for example, storage, and so on. So what we'll do, just to kind of illustrate that this isn't all smoke and mirrors, we'll add a namespace and we'll call it MKS CCC, and then we'll submit that. And so there we are. We've added the namespace. It usually pops right up, but let me just go away and then come back and just make sure that it is there. Oh, it just wasn't the bottom one. Okay, fair enough. And then we'll go to workloads, and I'll add a pod. I'll just do an Nginx one, and I'll say MKS CCC. And we'll just do a simple one for now. And it should pop up as pod name once it finishes. There it is. It's been successfully added. And let's find it in the list now. All right. I'm going to go away and get back to it. It didn't refresh. And there you see, I didn't get very creative on the pod name, so it's just called pod name, and it's running. So that's that kind of just to illustrate that we have now spun a Rancher cluster, and that Rancher cluster was spun up on CloudStack, and this is the server. We just have a single server in this case that is running CloudStack, running Rancher, and then on that we were able to, through the KSDK, we were able to actually spin, create a namespace and add a pod to it. I know that that's a pretty simple demo from a Kubernetes perspective, but you kind of get the general idea. Essentially, we haven't. There's a number of things that we haven't done yet, just because we only did this for this demo, where we are really just showing the basic potential of having different service connections work together and having them all call to essentially communicate with each other to represent a much bigger operation. But that kind of gives you an idea of where we're at. So in this case, I don't have much in terms of reporting because I didn't have usage turned on until this morning. But I can, so these are a number of reports that I can show you. Here, I'll just jump over. This is cloud.ca, which leverages CloudMC, so you can see a different theme. So this is obviously one that is much more used in this case. And I'll run to I'll use to one of our engineering examples. So this is one of our engineering environments. Now I am just as a user. I don't have operator permissions or anything. So if I go here, administration is there's not a whole lot there. But what is kind of interesting is that even for just my usage, I can then pick and say I want the engineering environment in the Ontario region, and I can see all of the costs associated with this environment. How much are utility costs? Where is the breakdown of the costs? And something I didn't mention before is we actually have the concept of resource commitments. And so I'll jump over here just to kind of very quickly show what I mean by that. But essentially what a resource commitment is you commit to pay X amount per month, and you essentially have a pool of resources available for that price. So we have a couple different types of resource commitments, and we'll do this one. So you have a fixed monthly one where you can say, we're going to spend $1,000 a month, and we're going to give them, just as part of their package, we're going to give them something like 5 IP addresses, and we're going to give them something like, I don't know, 20 of these, and let's say 40 of these. And if you submit, what you'll see is that it calculates the discount of what it is versus the pricing that is currently active for this the pricing that is set up for this account. And what it also does is just kind of shows you here what your allocation is of for that. Now, all that means is that they're going to pay $1,000 a month, regardless of how much they use. As soon as they go and they use all of this, everything beyond that will be charged at utility pricing. So it essentially allows you to provide discounts and for basically a customer saying, I'm going to commit to using this amount of resources. And this allows you to say, okay, for that amount, I will give you a discount. for that. And then anything you use beyond that is utility. So it allows for the service provider to have a little bit more predictability around their revenue. And it allows the customer to have a little bit more like a bit of a discount for kind of their standard, we use these VMs all the time type of thing. So I'll just delete that. There's not, you can delete kind of anything that you create here. So and so I only showed you one type of this. So here, let me just show you the other one real quick. So that was the fixed monthly price one. You also have a discount option where you can basically say for, let me just use one that has pricing associated for it. So for 20 of these, we're going to give a 40% discount. Oops. And then it recalculates. And then at the bottom, it basically, based on the number of billable months per year, billable hours per month, it will calculate what the total cost is for the allotment that you provided. So there's a couple of different ways to do it. So that just kind of gives you an idea of the some of the resource commitment stuff, which is kind of above and beyond some of the standard pricing for utility that's available. And I'm showing you the pricing version 1. We have pricing version 2 that I don't have set up in my on my environment just yet. And so there's a lot more available beyond.
Yeah, and maybe I can speak to that a little bit. So as lots of cloud operators know, different organizations and different partnerships often have very discrete pricing models through discounts or credits or really access to different services. And through our new monetization engine, you can actually track all types of resources in CloudStack and assign very complex pricing models based for each individual organization that you want. So if you want to give an organization a specific discount because they joined in a specific month, you can do that. If you want to do tiered pricing for your storage, for example, if you want to pay a flat fee per 5 IPs, you could do that. It really is more advanced and is in line with our customers' needs. We have seen that cloud operators often want to charge and price based on their own resources and in ways that make sense for them, and the monetization allows to do that internally as well. So do you want to go back to the Rancher cluster? Well,
yep. Did you want to see something here? Sorry.
Not necessarily. So
okay.
I'd actually maybe like a time check. It's already 12:18.
Yeah. I wanted to go
open it up for some questions. Or do you want to
one last thing. I just wanted to say that we also have the ability for payment providers to be set up. Right now, we currently have an integration with Chase Payment Tech, for example. But this essentially allows you to configure the ability for payment through credit cards. So if you wanted to get things set up so that people could self-subscribe to your service and sign up with a credit card, that's an option as well. And they could just be paying based on utility. Yeah, okay, so time check. I think that kind of does a bit of a wrap up on kind of what we were looking to show. And so are there questions? Feel free to unmute yourself and fire away.
Yeah, let's everybody who has any questions join the discussion live. So you can just unmute yourself. You can even, I think, start your camera and ask questions. Of course, we accept questions on the chat also. If you feel kind of shy.
I'll hit you with a question, Will. Hi, it's Giles. How are you doing?
Not bad. How you doing, Giles?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. So first of all, just about where CloudMC is positioned. You know, it's all talking about service providers. Is it just aimed at service providers, or could you see a sort of enterprise use case as well?
So that's an interesting question, actually. We definitely have built it for service providers originally. Cloud.ca, which we very recently is in the news that we recently sold that to that company, to Hypertech. That is all built on top of CloudMC. And so like there is a fair amount of functionality that is built assuming that you are offering services to a customer. Now, what that service is and who the customer is not, it's not like in stone, right? So if you're a telco and you're offering cloud services, fine, right? But if you're also an internal IT organization, right, like a corporate IT, and you have, say, OpenStack, and you want to make sure that everybody is consuming the services that you are offering, like in a consistent way, and you want to be able to have something like show back, charge back on all of the different divisions or business units within that organization. That's a totally valid use case, and everything that's built into CloudMC would absolutely work with that as well. So we've focused on the service provider use case more directly, mainly because when you have multi-level, multi-tenancy, like as a fundamental, you're solving kind of a higher order problem around having resellers and delegating certain amount of control to them for them to be able to offer their service. And so you don't have to do all of that, but there is the capability in that. And so, yeah, I don't know if I answered your question specifically, but hopefully that gives you an idea.
Yeah, I get it. So it's aimed at service providers, but of course we can all see enterprises as internal service providers, right?
Absolutely, right. Like every enterprise essentially is a technology company, whether or not they know it or not, right? So, does it apply to a standard enterprise? Absolutely, it can apply to a standard enterprise, but like the standard enterprise might not push the envelope in terms of the feature requirements that a service provider would. And so by targeting a service provider, it allows for us to have a little bit more control and nuance in the way that we are making services available to the market.
Cool. And I've just got one more. Sorry, I don't want to take all your time, Will. But what in summary? What's the deployment model? How do people deploy this in their own infra? Are you doing it as a SaaS offering? How do people actually use CloudMC?
So historically, we were having it deployed on-prem by the service provider or in a service provider's environment. That has some challenges due to version creep and being able to maintain the environments within a customer, because a lot of customers are like set and forget, and they don't want to. They don't want to keep as active. We have a very, very active dev team. We're pushing releases basically every 2 weeks, and like the product is evolving very quickly. So it didn't make sense to always be deploying on-prem. So we have recently launched a SaaS offering that essentially allows you to kind of bring your own cloud stack, bring your own services, and then you can consume it all just through a central SaaS offering. And so, yes, SaaS is kind of the more preferred way. That said, we still have the capability, say we have a government as a customer or something like that, and they have very strict regulations and so on around what it is that they require in terms of control and governance within their platform. There is the potential of being able to support that as well in a more on-prem type of deployment as well. But SaaS first is kind of the model we're going right now.
Thanks, Will. That's me done.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else questions? Sorry, yeah, that.
No problem. If we don't have any other questions, I would suggest that we move to Was it a virtual pub or a networking party tonight? Not sure, but we will start in 5 minutes. So let's use these 5 minutes so that everybody can prepare a drink. Unfortunately for Will, maybe it's gonna be a coffee, but we can try with Irish one.
Awesome. It's great. It's great to be back here and talking at CCC. It's been a lot of fun over the years working with the CloudStack community, and as you can tell, we've spent a lot of time with CloudMC supporting the CloudStack use cases. And so, if you have any questions, let us know. The booth is very, very early for us. We're in North America, and so I think it's at like 5 a.m. I will make an effort tomorrow and only tomorrow to make it to the booth in case you have additional questions. And I'll join the networking event after this and go from there.
Yeah, for everybody who has questions to Will, you can just book a meeting through the platform with him or start a chat with him. Of course, try to find a convenient time which works for both of you. And Will, if you have some free time in the next hours, you can also hang out in the networking lounge so that people can take a seat on the same table with you and talk with you. Thank you, Patrick, and thank you, Will. And it was a great workshop.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Great day/evening, everyone. Bye.
Cheers all.